Clinton, Haynes, Jake, Nigel, and Steven, get ready. You're next on the Red Golf Swing Analysis Series, episode 25. Good afternoon, Lion Golf Academy members and guests, and thank you for joining me once again for episode 25 of our Reddit Golf Swing Analysis Series. You don't have to follow Reddit to submit your swing, but go ahead and submit it if you're interested in appearing one of these episodes, and we'll help you out with your cause and effect. Keep in mind, I've never met these students. I don't know the range of motion. I'm not sure of their physical injuries or physical limitations unless they mention that in the notes, and I see these swings for the first time along with you. And starting in our next video, we're going to do a little competition. It's Find the Lion. So we'll have a lion appear somewhere in the video, and if you just timestamp it, the first comment to timestamp where the lion appears will be entered into a drawing that we hold once a month, and the winner will receive something. So keep your eyes out for that. So if you haven't followed us, go ahead and subscribe, and also hit the notification bell so you know when the video is uploaded. We upload 3 to 4 videos a week, and they range from everything from on-course, swing analysis, you name it, we're going to try and do it. So look out for that. All right, first we have on the screen is Clinton. So Clinton just sent me a down the line, which does kind of limit my cause and effect, because I really like to see where the ball position is. I like to see how the mobility right to left in your swing works. Do you cross the line? How much do you swing? Your notes pretty much say that you're 26.5 handicap, been playing for 2 to 3 years, so I guess welcome to golf. It's still pretty new, 2 to 3 years, and recently got a coach, so excellent job. I'm happy to see that. I'll be working with him for 10 weeks, and his misses, Clinton's misses, tend to be a little bit of a fade to the right. So whenever you see fade to the right, it's typically a path moving left with the club face open, or a club face that's square with a path moving left, which means the club face is open to path depending on your target. So it really depends on where you're aiming. So first of all, make sure your alignment's correctly, and then you take a look at the path, and then you also take a look at club face position and impact. And if you have a datametric launch monitor, it really helps you analyze this a little bit quicker. But if not, you don't really need one. It's really more for if you want to fine-tune stuff and be a 26 handicap. Your swing, just putting up these lines first and looking at that swing, it's pretty solid. For 26 handicap, only playing for 2 to 3 years, you've got a lot of positives going on here. I don't see much issues in terms of your spine angle loss. You do a really good job of staying in that brace line. Club face is slightly open as you come down here. You can see that club face is fairly open. I'm not quite sure if it squares down. It looks like it's still kind of open. And then here's the release past there. So it's a little bit of a flip instead of a release, but your right arm gets on that secondary plane line pretty nicely. However, on the way back, you can kind of see, so this is where your setup should be with your shoulders. So it's basically 90 degrees from your spine angle. So that means you're truly rotating around your spine. So let's see if your shoulders get there. So at the top of your swing, this is midway through the point. You can see your shoulders have kind of flattened out a little bit. As you get to the top of the swing, they don't really tilt back under. And as a result, let's remove these two so we don't confuse ourselves here. As a result, with a flatter shoulder tilt, that's going to lower your arm position. So you can see your arm position now is lower than where it should be. And if you just want to get those hands higher, it's not necessarily reaching with the hands, it's just getting your tilt to be on its correct axis, which will allow your hands to get to that secondary plane line. And from there, we can just drop our hands naturally and just turn like you do. As you take that swing down, we see the hands are trying to go down, but because they're lower than they need to be, this plane is your path is a little bit too low initially. It should be a little bit further away from your body, closer to that connection with your chest. And now we can just go ahead and turn through. So it looks like a slight bit of catch up that your hands have to do, and we can kind of see that release point is more of a flip under instead of a roll over. But to help you put this in perspective, if we can get you to be here but with more turn and tilt, that'll get your arms further away from your body, and then you can just pull down with one motion. But when you get your arms back here, you can see all this extra motion that you do without even turning. That's usually a result of your shoulders leveling out, and then you lose that tension in your left side. So if I remain in my tilt, if I remain in my posture, I build up tension and elasticity on my left side, and it kind of stops me from going too far back unless I pull out of my posture. And you've basically pulled out of your posture a little bit to allow you to turn more. So maybe you're working on turn, maybe you're trying to ease up the tension, but just be careful with that, because the body is trying to get some tension to hold itself in posture. And the more tension you create, the more you can drive down into the golf ball and fire through. So remember, the muscles aren't elastic. They don't rebound at all. All they do is basically the muscle fibers. When you stretch your muscles, you're stretching your fibers to a point. They don't just automatically rebound like a rubber band. What you're doing is you're pulling your muscles apart. So now you can, when you contract them, there's more room to contract and you have more firepower. But if you're not pulling your muscles to a point and you're just turning and your left shoulder's getting higher and you turn and there's no pulling, there's less to move down, there's less to contract. So now you manipulate on the way down. So hope that helps you. I'm going to guess where you're from. It's still a little bit chilly down there. I see the foggy skies. I see some chemtrails up in the top. Got to get my tinfoil hat for this one. I'm going to say you're somewhere in Texas. Let me know. Let's see who's next. Okay, next up we have Haynes. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Haynes. Let me look at your notes. Basically, just curious. All right, I like that. Curiosity. Okay, so driver, we're going to start with the face on so we can see ball position. We can see that overall motion. See a little bit of hip shooting out already. Overswinging. All right. See, wow, that's a lot of turn and a lot of hanging back. So you're definitely capable of getting some great positions here. I just see a lot of kind of fighting against yourself a little bit. Okay. So let me just draw these lines. I'll be right back with you. So drew these lines. You don't have to walk and keep on drawing them. Let's take a look at that address position and ball setup. So if we look at your ball positions way out front of your left toe. So if you draw your shoulders and draw your spine right through, so your hands are looking pretty good. That ball position right now is a little bit too far forward. It should be where that club is. So I know you're trying to probably manufacture hitting up on it. But remember, now that ball position starting is about 3 or 4 golf balls ahead of you, so you have to reach somehow, and it looks like you do it by turning a lot. And when you have to turn a lot through the ball, you might have to manipulate your position to get to the top of your backswing to allow you to turn more. But we'll take a look as we go through. Let's take a look at the backswing. You watch your right hip. Your right hip's kind of shutting out just a little bit, so your hip tilt's okay. It's all right. It just looks like the weighting is stuck more on the outside of this right knee. But you do a good job of staying in your spine angle. You haven't really come out of your posture. Your arm position, however, gets a little bit too long here. And when you take a look at what happens, so there's where you should basically kind of stop. It's a slower takeaway. You can stop that position. You're holding a nice, angle here. It's almost 90 degrees at that point. From there, you can just kind of turn and pivot under. But if you take a look at that extra motion here, now that club head is starting to pull your body towards your upper body towards the target. So now you've kind of lost your spine angle. Here, your spine angle is looking pretty good. And now your spine angle is kind of tipping the other way. And from there, most of your weight is going to be upper heavy. So to compensate that, your lower body has to really engage and overcompensate. And now that gets you to trying to hang back. And here you're looking pretty good. I mean, your left side is bracing up. You've increased your tilting, so you can see your tilt now is increased, which is good because now you're going to make sure you hit it on the upswing. So I get why that golf ball is up out in the front there to help you do that. But I think it's a little bit inefficient because now if you take a look post impact, how much of your body had to be involved to manipulate that motion. So if we keep continuing on, good release point here. Upper body's really hanging back, so you're kind of stuck in that spine angle way back there. And now this will all of a sudden put a lot of pressure down where that X is, that lower back. And look at that right foot. That right foot's really like coiling over. And so this position, although it is pretty impressive that you can get there, I would highly suggest working with somebody to limit that. And part of it could be that ball position moving to where it should be, so you don't have to manipulate and have to rotate and have to reach so much because you're still swinging on the upswing. And then your one thing that you have to pay attention from here is as you take that club back, it's just reducing the arm motion. You don't need all that arm motion. Remember, the backswing is 90% of your whole efficient time. It's anywhere from 70 to 90, but I like to say 90%, where the downswing is anywhere from 10% of the time to 30% of the time. So the downswing has to remake anything that you've pulled off of the posture, pulled off the power source. So I hope that helps you. Let's take a look at the down the line to see if that makes sense. All right, Haynes, let's take a look at your swing here real quick. Oh, we got a little disco going back there. Okay, definitely. So pulling that club outside, as well. You can see the lower body gets disconnected by pushing along with that push out with the hands, a little bit laid off, and there's that extra motion we don't really need. Coming on in. You do a really good job of holding it though. I mean, look at that. That's pretty impressive there. Okay. I'll tell you what, I mean, you make a really solid motion on the way through. I mean, that's a really good high finish. So it's maybe not as much pressure from this point. It looks at least the back looks pretty straight, so you're not in some awkward excess tilt where you're trying to hold up. But I'd still be careful, because from the front view you can see how much you're hanging back, so this still puts a lot of pressure on the lower back. But from the down the line, at least it's straight, so if anything, you've got that going for you. However, how we get there again is a little bit curious. So let me draw the lines and I'll come back to you. Okay, so we drew the lines. They're not exact, but they're good enough. First of all, it looks a little bit hunched over for a driver. Remember, the more hunched over you are, the harder it is to hit on the upswing, because when you hit on the upswing and being hunched over, your tilt has to increase, and that puts pressure on the lower back. So I like to see a little bit taller, even if you have to be further or closer, whatever it needs, just to kind of get you taller. You know, taller is easier to swing up. Hunched over is harder to swing up because you have to manipulate a lot of your upper body. Arm position looks okay. I mean, it does look a little bit stretched out, and that might help you when you stand up taller to get your arm position to hang down normally. But the most important thing is to take a look at your path. So, you know, from this view, it looks like, okay, the club's riding up the path. However, I think the way the camera's taken, it should actually be taken further off your foot line to make sense, because right now it's almost taken at an angle, so it looks like you're on plane. But if you take it from the foot line, I promise you these hands are going up and away from your body, which now starts messing with your shoulders. It starts messing with the way you load into your body, because if your arm's going out, it wants to take the power with it, so it wants to pull everything to the toes, and you might try to compensate. So now all of a sudden, if the arm's going out towards the toes and your body's trying to pull back, now you have a lot of width between your arm and your chest, incorrect width. You don't want to be away from your body. You want to have that thing connected as you turn. So more of a one-piece takeaway might help you stay more connected, because as your arms go up and away, they're going to become pretty flat. And we can see here the club is actually below your arms. So if you extend this out here, you know, that straight line, your club is dangling on the below part of that straight line. You know, so now that's very flat. Now you try and compensate for that by getting your arms to kind of go back further to see if that club can catch up. But now, look how much you're turning. You don't need that much turn. I mean, it's nice that you can get there, but it's almost like your arms pulled you back and you had to turn more. Now you have so much to do to hit that golf ball. Now you drop the club in the slot, so you definitely get it there. So now the club, if we take a look at your head and point it down, it's above that golf ball, which is fine, because now the club's gonna pass lower, and you've flattened your club plane, which allows you to swing more up. So we see that club drop below, so there's the club below the plane, which is okay. You know, that's something that you want to do with a longer club anyway, and you can now hit on the way up, which you do. So you can see this is a touchy one, because you figured out a way to make it work. Now, if you decide that you want to kind of but you want to change your backswing position so it's a little bit more efficient, you don't have to hit a bunch of golf balls, that will have an impact on your impact position and also your ball flight. So you might not want to try this by yourself. Quick things that you need to work on is ball position. Move that ball position where it should be. Stand a little bit taller. Maybe that might help you alleviate some pressure. But if you want to take this to the next level, you really have to invest in a golf professional, a PGA professional, where he or she can really help diagnose some things to kind of shorten and some things to keep you connected, so you don't have to feel like your body's in these awkward positions. Clearly you can get there, but for how long can you get there? You know, I would say this swing, if you keep going in 10 or 15 years time, something's gonna break down in your body, and it's not a fun experience, because at that point it might be too late to try and fix stuff. So really hope that helps. Can't really tell where you're hitting from, so I'm just gonna throw this out there. Let's just say you're somewhere in Arizona, and I don't know why you'd be in the basement in Arizona. It's beautiful there, but let me know. Next up we have Jake. Okay, Jake just sent me a down the line, and he just said, thanks for doing this. You're very welcome, Jake. If you want to resend something for a face-on, that'll really help me, because face-on helps me see ball position, helps me see how your body moves laterally. But down the line, we can try and make it work with what best we have. Overall, let's take a look at the swing first. Okay. Footwork, pretty good. I would imagine that your hip tilt is a little bit different from the front view. You make it work though. But again, that impact position is a little bit worrying, and I'll explain as we start going through. Okay, it looks good. It's a very simple motion. Not a lot going on, which is nice. It's pretty repeatable. Or repeatable? I don't know. One of those. Okay, let me draw the lines. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We drew some lines. Now we can kind of make more sense of this. So initially, setup, it looks a little bit misaligned. So shoulders slightly open, feet are slightly closed, hips it's hard to tell with black. But from what I can see is just check your alignment. I mean, you always want to make sure your alignment's checked. No matter how good you are, no matter how new you are, alignment's the first thing to go. Once alignment starts going, then that changes everything. It changes your path, changes the club face, changes your rotation, changes your loading and unloading. So always make sure you check that first. Then you check your grip, then you check your ball placement, then you check your overall balance of the swing before you start messing with stuff. But looks like the hands, it's just a little bit, it just looks a little bit misaligned. Agitate that club back. Looks pretty good. Same sort of thing. If this was down the foot line, if this camera's down the foot line, you probably see that club cover that O's hand. So really good. Nice one-piece takeaway. You can see the club face is matching your spine angle. So really good. That means that you're nice and wide. Very little can go wrong from that point. Camera's shifting a little bit, which is giving you that spacing and your impact line, but it looks like you're holding on to it. Okay, looks good. So you can see there's a little crunching going on with your spine angle. So let's see what's caused. Yeah, it doesn't look that there's much space in between your arms and hands, but there is space at impact. It's still a little bit tight. So if you look at that right elbow as you strike the golf ball, it's a little bit tight to your body. So, maybe alignment issues, posture issues. So tiny bit taller, almost feel like you're reaching for it. I'm not sure. I mean, it all really depends on how tall you are, what the what the arm-body relationship is, the ratio, and also how much your knuckles are hanging from the ground. So I don't know if you've gone through some testing of your clubs, but it looks like there's a little bit less room at impact. But look at that follow through. So as you follow through, you can see, we did lose a little spine loss. So if we go to the top of your swing, you can see I'll draw your spine angle at the top. Here's gonna be your back brace line at the top. As you strike the golf ball, you can see it's a little bit of posture loss. Not too bad though. Your spine angle looks a little bit kind of crooked here, which could start to have some issues. Because now your hips are open. They're wide open to the target. Your shoulders are open to the target, which is fine. At impact, they're slightly open, which is okay. You want them to be almost level, maybe even slightly closed. It's hard to do though. But as you hit the golf ball, you can see how much tilting you have, which is what you needed to have based on that setup. And as a result, look at this lower right back. So there's a lot of torque and twisting down there that could eventually start to break on you. So definitely keep that stretching up, keep that mobility up. You want to try and alleviate some of that pressure to make the swing last a while. And it looks really solid. I mean, you do a really good job. There's very little motions going on here. There's a lot of core action. It just looks a little bit too crunched. So check with somebody with your setup. Find a way to get yourself a little bit more room, even if it's 3 or 4 inches. That really helps you. So maybe it's a little bit further back, a little bit taller might help you, so you don't have to get so much tilting. The goal is you can still tilt, but it all really depends on how much you're bending at the start. So if you're bending a lot, you have to tilt a lot. But if you're bending straight, if you're standing straight, you don't have to tilt, you just turn. So it really comes down to that. So have somebody check that off you. So I hope that helps you. I know we don't have a face on yet, so if you want to resend a face on, I'll be happy to look at that for you. It looks very dry. Let's just say Denver. I don't know why, but it reminds me of Denver. I hope that helps. Let's see who's next. Alrighty, next up we have Nigel. Nigel, I love that garden. You just need a few cactuses to make that garden really good. Is that a cactus back there? I don't know. But a really cool garden. All right, let's take a look. Okay, nice wide stance, maybe a little bit too wide. Yep, hips kind of shutting out underneath you. A tiny bit of reverse pivot. Now we have to kind of reverse back. There's a little bit of that reverse, kind of stuck on that right foot, kind of pushing through. It's not too bad. Let's take a look at your notes. All right. No notes. Okay, so we'll just do what we can. Let me draw the lines. Okay, let me draw the lines and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So Nigel, let's take a look. First of all, let's check your ball position. All right, ball position looks pretty good. This spine angle goes right through the hands. Okay, good job with that ball position. Feet look a little bit wide. Now the problem with wide feet is you can get away with moving right or left a lot. For you, with wide feet, you can really also tilt under and then jut your right hip out. So if you want to look at your right hip, if you move that right hip on the way back, so that kind of juts out over that line. Now your spine angle's kind of changed. So let's redraw that spine angle. Okay, so that's basically where your spine angle is. As you take that club back, your spine angle here, if we draw a line up your spine, you can see your spine angle is kind of shifted underneath you. It's okay. I mean, it's not as dramatic as it could be. That's going to give you some issues on the way through, but let's take a look at it as you come down into the target. So there's very little lateral motion, and I believe that's just because your body doesn't have much to work with, because the weighting is not stuck on that inside right heel. It's more stuck in the middle, so there's not much to push off on. So you try your best to get that left side. It's nowhere near impact. Now remember, because you have a wide stance, I mean, you have a lot of room to try and get to your impact position. So that's one other negative thing about being so wide, is that impact line is way out over there. So if you narrow it down, the impact line is going to be right next to you, so you don't have to move so much to get over to that left side. So narrow your feet down for sure. As you strike the golf ball, you see a lot of turns, so you're doing a good job turning through. Right side's trying to come up, and you can see your arms are again very low, so it looks just like a lot of turning going on, not a lot of tilting. Hands are kind of stuck too much to the body and being very flat. That's what I'm imagining the down the line would look like. I could be completely wrong when we take a look at the side, but just from this face front view, narrow the stance a little bit. Ball position's looking really good, and work on getting your upper body to kind of turn and get a little bit over that right side, so now you have something to push off on. So let's look at the down the line, see if that helps. Okay, here's the down the line. Let's take a look at the swing. Okay, you know what? It's pretty good. Your left arm does get high enough here. But yeah, you can see that right hip kind of jut out from here, which increases your hip tilt. And then from here, you have to really try and adjust that hip tilt, but it's a little bit too late. So you turn a lot and the club goes out to in. So the hip tilt, if I have a hip, if this is my spine, and if my hip tilt starts tilting the wrong way, it changes your spine angle. And when your spine angle and you're trying to turn, if your spine angle is leading into my target and I'm turning, it's going to come outside to in. If my spine angle is leading away from my target and I'm turning, it's going to come a little bit more inside to out. So that hip tilt really adjusts your upper body, and that affects your plane and the rotation of your hands. But let me draw some lines. I'll be right back. Okay, let's take a look here. Nigel, we see it's a little bit tall. I'm not quite sure what club you're hitting here, but it just looks very tall. And as a result, your arms are kind of high. That plane's sitting pretty high. So you do need a very upright motion, which it looks like you do get to that, which is nice. The problem is also that little magic zone we need that club to fall in. It gets very high, so very steep. When you have steepness, you can really close that club face down. You can really open that club face down. It's really hard to stay connected as it's steep, and that increases your angle of attack, increases a lot of things. So let's take a look as you take that club back. So the club head's trying to rise up that plane, which is good, but because it's very steep, if you're trying to do a one-piece takeaway with a steep motion, your left shoulder has to dip a lot down to keep your hands raising up while you're in the one-piece motion. So you do a good job, but when your left shoulder gets down, that club face will also shut down on you. So there's your club face, and then there's your spine angle. So that's a pretty close club face position. So you can see kind of what's causing that, because you're too close and too upright and you're trying to do a one-piece takeaway. So you do the one-piece takeaway beautifully, but it's just from a very tall, steep posture. Get to the top position, your left arm does get to that top plane line, which is beautiful. You see that club face is shut compared to your left arm. So if you now tilt under and release the club face, that ball's going so far left. Specifically with an outside in motion that I see you have, because from here, with your hip jutting underneath you and that upper body's not really kind of leaning away from the body, away from the targets, now that's going to give you an outside in motion anyway. So it takes a lot of effort now to rewrite the ship. Let me remove this here. Actually, I'll leave that there. That's where your club face was. So as we take that club back down, it's still very steep. You get here, the club is, in the slot now, but now because your upper body is not in the right position, so there's your steepness. Now from here, you can see it's hard for you to turn. You can already see your hips are maybe at level. Now if you do any sort of turning from this position, that club and path is going to be outside to in all day long. There's nothing you could do to compensate from that. And we can see that here, you're just stuck on that plane because now you can't turn anymore. So your hips have almost like stopped, because they figured out, if I keep turning, I'm going to either shank the ball, oh, sorry, I said the S word, I'm going to hosel fade the ball, or I'm going to rope hook it, or I'm going to hit it very heavy. So you've learned to stop rotating until you get down to impact. Now you can kind of catch up some rotation, and you see that club head is way down here. So you have a very steep, and you pull across it, and with a low exit path. And from there, it's just, let momentum take you to wherever you are. And you see there, you're just stuck. So you have this leaning tower look. You've lost all the posture. Now your whole body's just kind of stood up, and you've lost the motion. You've lost that angular momentum. You've lost a lot of centrifugal force. It's just a lot of up and down. So check your alignment, first of all. Then you need to take a new starting position. So definitely further away. Feel like you're more hunched over, a little bit more bend. And then that one-piece takeaway, but also do it with the hips. So I think you've been so used to jutting your hips out instead of turning. Let me know if that helps. If you're confused, let me know in the comments. I'll help you out. But great garden. What a beautiful garden. I could sit out there all day. Let's just say you're in Tennessee. I could be totally wrong, and I probably am, but let me know. All right, last up is Nigel. Nigel, you look like, is that an Augusta hat? Are you in Georgia? Let's just say you're in Georgia. I'm just going to throw it out now, Georgia. All right, we got a driver going on here. Let's take a look at the swing. Okay, I can already see some power coming on there. Let's slow this down a little bit. Okay, a little bit of standing up. Okay, all right, so you can definitely get a good motion here. It's a little bit disconnected. All right, footwork. Footwork's looking good. I mean, you're pushing off that right side, delivering to the left side. There's a little bit of spinning going on. That's usually a sign of a lot of turn. We have to figure out why you need to turn so much. Okay, so let me draw the lines. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's take a look here. Now, I see why you need to turn a lot more. So, shoulders. I mean, you look really wide. It looks like you're kind of stuck in the center of your your weight distribution is a little bit centered, even though you do have a good shoulder tilt. So I'm curious to see where your alignment is, because that looks like it could be a little bit open with the shoulders, but we'll have to see down the line. You can see the spine angle goes right through your hands, which is awesome. Ball position's pretty good, so you're really close to getting that position. I think you need to just hang back a little bit more so that club head isn't forward pressing. Now it's actually sitting on that golf ball. So we see the angle between your club head and your setup. You can see there's a little bit of forward press. Now when you forward press, you have to really exaggerate the turning or the tilting to kind of delay that release and get those hands to meet up to the golf ball correctly. So that could be one of the reasons why we see a lot of excess turn. But let's take a look at your way you take back. So tiny bit of picking up at the arms. So not a lot of hip turn initially. So arms are kind of disconnected from the hips. It should just be more of a one-piece motion to help you get that depth and the stretch. So that's going to have some effect on your top plane line. You can see the arms, the shoulders did raise up. Top position here. there's your initial spine angle. So your new spine angle is kind of standing up. So I'll draw your new spine angle here. So you've lost some spine angle. Now to hit up on the ball, you have to actually increase that spine angle the other way. So away from the target. Now you'll be able to hit up on the ball. So do we do that? Let's take a look as we come on down. So you're driving. Okay, so we kind of get a little bit more spine angle. Okay, so you definitely get that spine angle to increase. However, it's increasing ahead of the golf ball, so you might still be hitting slightly down on it. And there's that turn. All right, so it's pretty good. You definitely get a lot of turn to delay that release. So you have a lot of potential power. I think you're just a few tiny tweaks away from getting your numbers a little bit better. Let's take a look at the down the line, because that's going to really open it up. Okay, Steven, let's take a look at the down the line here. Yeah, there's no flattening out of the shoulders. Little spine loss. Okay, let me redraw the lines. I'll be right back. Okay, Steven, so we're back. Let's take a look here as we take that club back. Yeah, so there's not a lot of that initial hip turn, and you're also leveling out your shoulders too. So if you take a look at where you take that club back, the club goes through your hands up here. You'd like it to go more down here, which will keep your shoulders in check. It'll keep your shoulders in that spine angle. It'll keep your shoulders tilting according to the bend you have. But as you take that club back now, because you've kind of disconnected, as you get up here, you look at that shoulder, it levels out and your whole body starts to come up a little bit. So now you've kind of lost that spine angle, and your weighting is shifting towards the target. Now when your weighting shifting towards the target, you don't have much to push off on. It's almost like stack and tilt. You're tilting this way, and then you're just kind of staying on your left side and trying to tilt under the other way. With the driver, it's really hard with stack and tilt, because now all of a sudden you're counting on tilting and falling back to adjust your spine angle. If you want to do this in a quote-unquote more traditional motion, that one-piece takeaway, and get a little bit lean away from the target, now it's a lot easier to tilt under from a lean away and push your power to your left side. And what you can see here is when you get to the top position, your left arm is a little bit lower of where it should be, because you flattened out your shoulders to get that turn. So there's a little bit of disconnection going on here, and we'll put a little brace line just back here. Let's take a look as you strike the golf ball. So here's where you make contact. We'll back up one frame. Okay, so here's your contact. New spine angle is definitely taller. You've lost a lot of your angle. So it's more like everything's crunching in while you're turning, as opposed to pulling back and tilting and turning. So that pulling back action is typically a sign of somebody that hasn't loaded their weight correctly, so they can't control much to push it to a new direction. So if you load as much of your power as you can to the inside right heel, by maintaining your posture, by not standing up, because when you stand up, it also pulls your weight back to your heel. Now there's not much more to push off on, so your weighting right now is going from heel to toe. So you're going from right heel to left toe at impact, where you'd like to be from right toe to left heel. So you need to push to the back left side to create the room, so you don't have to stand up and flip. So you do create a lot of power. But unfortunately, I think you can, fortunately, you can get a lot more. But unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit of training, and correct training, and getting in position based from the transition. Now, how do we get that? We have to cure the backswing. How do we cure that? We have to check the alignments. How do we check all that stuff in? It's basically you have to work with a pro. So if you don't have a professional with you, I highly recommend you research somebody. Check your range of motion first of all to see if you can get in these positions. If you can, you're physically capable of doing it. It looks like you hit the golf ball hard enough, but I think you're leaving some on the table. With that aggressive motion, you're probably leaving 20 to 30 yards, like just disappearing just by inefficiency. So I hope that helps you. Again, if you're a little confused, leave a comment in the notes below. I hope you understand a little bit more. Sometimes I can rattle on and get on my own little path, and I think I'm making perfect sense, but somebody looks and go, what are you even talking about, man? So have patience with me that way. But I hope this helps you guys, and if you like this stuff, hit that like and subscribe, and we'll be putting out a couple more videos this week on course instruction, and we'll be up in episode 26 next week. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you need anything. Thanks for the support of the channel, and fairways and greens.